So Putnam Investments, asset manager, 122 billion, give or take, how the market's doing, right? Three main lines of business: mutual funds, which is retail business; institutional, so large corporations will give us money to manage on their behalf; and the retirement business, which is 401k. Now, interesting is that, no, that's okay. Interestingly, though, when I talk about retail, we don't actually sell direct to the shareholder. We don't sell to the consumer. If you want to buy Putnam Investment mutual funds, you do have to go through a financial advisor. So Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, et cetera, et cetera. So that makes this really a B2B, a business-to-business proposition. We have offices in London, Boston, Frankfurt, Amsterdam, Tokyo, Sydney, Singapore. So a big global presence. The headquarters are in Boston. That's where I'm based out of. A little bit about myself. Bob mentioned this before. A little over 12 years at Putnam. 25 years in technology, give or take, so about half. Started the investment systems in the fixed income data warehouse teams. Before that, this was my first introduction to financials. Prior to that, I was with Bose Corporation, and I'm sure you guys have heard about Bose. They make consumer electronic speakers, really. So fixed income was a drastic change from selling and marketing speakers, right, to bonds and shares. And then prior to that, I was with a consulting firm, a couple of them actually, doing similar work around data and data architecture. So right now my team is responsible for, in no particular order though, business intelligence, campaign management, and I'll talk about campaign management a lot because that's what we've really focused on in the past 12 months. It's also known as marketing automation, and Bob can correct me when I stray. All right. Data architecture, data warehouses, data access and integration, ETL design, and all technology around the institutional business. So moving right along, let me try to paint a picture for you as to how, as a technologist, how we tackle these problems here. So, I want to lay out the groundwork as to what the corporation expects or what their goals are, what my specific business units expect and what their goals are, and then, last but not the least, of course, how technology is assisting those to meet those goals. So putting clients first, and this was, everybody says that, but this truly is a corporate objective. And by that we mean anything that we do to manage or design products is with clients in mind. It's not just that, but also with, as you see with the other bullet points, keeping service first, so best-in-class service. We have two locations in the Boston area. There's Andover, which is a satellite office from PO Square. And when you walk into the Andover office, there's a huge banner that goes pretty much from the ceiling to the floor in this room that lists all the years that Putnam has won service awards. I think they won every single year, bar one, which was maybe 25 years ago. So we really take that seriously. And then, of course, deliver superior and consistent performance. Like I said, our widgets are mutual funds, and our mutual funds get measured by how well they do. We are competing against all the other mutual funds that you can go out and buy. So for us to be distinguishing ourselves, we need the consistent, not just superior one quarter, but consistently superior. So that's important for the corporation. And then to keep abreast or keep ahead of competition, continue to bring innovative products to market. Right? And then specifically around the business areas that I support, and sales and marketing, really global distribution is what we call it. The very first thing that's important to any marketing organization or even a sales organization is getting to know your customer, 360-degree view of your customer. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, what that means in the next slide. And next is, once you know about that customer, how best to market to them. So marketing automation or campaign management is how we put it, or how our CMO puts it, is reach the right customer with the right message at the right time through the right channel. So some people only want to come visit us on the website. Others respond well to emails. Yet other advisors, and remember I'm talking business to business here now, so our financial advisors, the ultimate customer that we are trying to influence, may actually prefer a phone call, or an in-person visit, or conference calls, or whatever, or direct mail, which although I don't think anybody prefers direct mail anymore. So the right customer, which is who is the next customer? If you had one phone call to make before the end of the day, whom would you call? Because we are dealing with limited resources in the marketing space, in the sales space. So with limited resources, who is the next customer that you want to call? The best next customer that you want to reach out to. And with what message do you want to reach out to them with? Because if I know that Bob is interested in equity products, and I call him and try to pitch him a fixed income product, well, that's probably not a good match. So knowing our customer, knowing how to reach them and with what message is very, very important. We use data visualization to tackle some of these problems, and I'll talk about that. And of course, like any other business, we want to grow assets under management. Ultimately, we get paid to manage money. The more money we manage, the better revenue stream we have. So grow assets under management in a scalable manner. I actually had up there without increasing headcount. The compliance department didn't really care for that statement. In a scalable manner is what they preferred I put down, so in a scalable manner. And of course, be able to measure the effectiveness of your campaigns, the effectiveness of how well you're doing with your marketing automation, and what messages are working and which ones are not. So getting a little bit more into the 360-degree view of the customer. So these days, like the rest of us, the customer chooses how they want to interact with us. They may come to us over the web. They might call us. We might call them. They might receive an email from us. They may choose to open it. They may choose not to open it. We may send them direct mail, like snail mail, or an in-person visit at the office. And these are interrelated. We might send them an email, right? And then they pick up the phone and call us, or call the wholesaler, our salesperson, and have an in-person visit, request an in-person meeting. All of these touch points that the consumer is a part of don't follow any pattern. Yet we need to know how these are interconnected for us to build that 360-degree view of the customer so we can take the next best action. So right away you can see that this is an ideal candidate for merging all these disparate data into a logical or a federated view. And we'll talk about that as well. And customers, of course, tend to float. Nobody's tied to a single channel or a medium anymore. Best Buy is a good example. They have an online presence. They have stores. You can buy online. You can go in person and buy in the store. You can call them. So I might do the research over the web. I might then decide to visit a store to see a demo of the product or talk to a salesperson. I may then choose to buy the product in the store or come back and call it in or do it over the web. And all of this might have been initiated because I got an email offer from them that says, here's a coupon for 10% or whatever it was. All of those interactions are very important for Best Buy to know, or any retailer to know, what I'm interested in. Because if I'm interested in a TV and they're trying to pitch me a cooking range, right, that's a mismatch. Adding to this complexity is the changing customer demographics themselves. So customers are undergoing change. Having kids, in our business, of course, retirement. If you have a life change such as getting married or having kids or you're about to retire, those are important demographic changes. The goal of all of this ultimately is to know as much about your customer as possible and know it in a timely fashion. So a little bit more about the right customer at the right time. We talked about this before. I added one more over there, which is the right frequency. So everybody receives email offers, right? You could. What is the right frequency? Is every day too frequent? I'd say yeah. Is once a year too infrequent? Probably. Right. The answer is somewhere in between. You want to reach out to your customers not too frequently so as to annoy them with information overload or too much messaging, but you also don't want to reach them infrequently that you're irrelevant. So finding the right balance about the contact strategy is an equally important part in this marketing automation. So what does this do for technical challenges? Connecting the dots. First and foremost, you need to have the ability, obviously. We have to know, can we even do it? Whether we do it virtually or physically, first of all, we need to know that we have the ability to capture these data points so we can actually connect them. Second is the agility. It's no longer okay to have 18-month project cycles that say, yes, I can get you your web data, connect it to your phone data, connect it to your campaign data, but it's going to require a data warehouse, and it might take me 9 to 18 months, right? That's not the business cycles we're used to anymore. And then latency of data. If somebody visits a website and they look at a fixed income product, in our case, and then they call into the phone center and they want to speak to an internal advisor, that advisor needs to know what this customer is interested in. Because if they're looking at, once again, the same example, if they're interested in fixed income and they call in, we need to know that so that we can actually talk to them about the fixed income products and not try to pitch an equity product, for example. So that latency becomes important. It's a technical challenge because the customers are not waiting for our batch cycles to complete before calling in, right? They're going to call in on their convenience. So the latency of data becomes really important in this marketing case. And Ted is out there, and he said he would cheer me on at this point. But and then consistency, of course. That's whether we do it for this project or not, or for this use case or not. Consistency of data is an underlying requirement. That availability of data is like a dial tone. You pick up the phone, you expect the dial tone to be there. The business expects the data to be there, and they expect it to be there consistently. So I actually equated, can you imagine if I picked up the phone one day and there was no dial tone? I mean, that really doesn't happen anymore. That's the same with this data. The business expects it to be there and expects it to be there in a timely fashion and to be accurate. Because they're making important decisions. They're trying to market to customers, try to grow the business, try to sell. Just there's no room for error there. And then if that wasn't enough, because of course that's not challenging enough, so let's throw another wrinkle in this. Cloud computing comes along. Our main CRM, customer relationship management system, moved to the cloud, so Salesforce.com, right? Now what does that do? Well, if I'm talking about marketing and I'm talking about marketing to our customers, one of the main execution channels of that campaign, if you're trying to make phone calls or trying to record your interaction with the customer, is Salesforce.com. Only now it's out in the cloud, right? A very important execution channel just moved out into the cloud, out of your environment, where you could have access to the data anytime you want it. It was relational. You could move it. You could aggregate it. You could virtualize it. It was SQL. Well, it's out in the cloud now. SQL doesn't apply anymore. It's web services based. Plus, you cannot get it anytime you want. Not in the volumes that we're talking about. So moving that data on a nightly basis becomes a challenge. So it introduces some latency issues and also introduces some unique technical challenges. And we'll talk about how we got around some of those. And then measurable business results. Those are technical challenges. Why is that a technical challenge? Because measurement, the example I gave you before, and let's stick with the Best Buy example. So it's easy to measure if you send an email to a customer and they opened it. There are tools that you can use. There's products that will track that will tell you if a customer opened your email or not, whether they clicked on the link in that email or not. That's the easy part. You can definitely measure web traffic. You can know, especially if you're dealing with cookies or known users, you know exactly what they did on the website. But say you went to the website, right, and you looked at TVs or whatever it is you were looking for, and then you went to the store. There is no record of you going to that store. Nobody knows who you are. Unless you make a purchase, they don't know that it was Arvinder, the same guy, unless they have some really fancy imaging technology that they're trying to track me. They don't know. I'm anonymous. So that there's a big gap. They can track my online behavior. They can track my email behavior. They can even track my phone, because if they have my phone number, they can probably track me down and say, this is the same guy. But when I visit the store, ironically, they don't know who I am, unless I make a transaction. So that's actually a really big technical challenge. For us at Putnam, there is no Buy It Now button on Putnam.com. Right? You cannot buy direct. We sell through advisors. So when somebody comes to our website or answers our email or somehow responds to a campaign or marketing activity, we can only track it so far. When they actually go buy the product at their financial advisor, that transaction is sort of anonymous to us. We don't know. We don't know who actually, when they bought it, why they bought it, what was the real reason that caused them to buy it, because a lot of time that data comes to us aggregated. And that's not always a direct measurement. So there's a lot of inferencing going on, a lot of complex analytical models going on that are trying to connect the dots once again so that the ultimate business results, the sale, is measurable. And it's not just always about the sales, by the way. It's also about moving people further along the sales cycle. So I know the sale is the ultimate goal, but to get from somebody who is just a prospect, somebody who's thinking about buying your product, all the way to them actually buying the product, there's many steps in between. There's varying degrees of interest. There's varying degrees of, they go from being a prospect to being a hot lead to being an opportunity to being actual. Even moving people further along the sales funnel is a viable, measurable, is a good measurement to have. So once again, we're back to the same picture from before, which is you still have those different channels. You have the web, the call center, the email, the direct mail, the office. And those interactions are still going on in their own random fashion that the consumer is driving. Right? We're driving some of it by maybe campaigns. And most likely, and this is probably true for a lot of you, these are disparate systems. The web analytics is different than the bulk email, of course. CRM for us is sitting out in the cloud, salesforce.com. Market conditions themselves are external. They influence behavior. We have talked about demographics. And our own campaigns. All of that information, each of those is actually a separate system, separate database. Some of it is out in the cloud. Salesforce is a very important piece for us, but it's out in the cloud. To bring it all together and create that 360-degree view, that's where virtualization comes into play. The centralized decisioning system, which is the marketing automation software, leverages that centralized view to make its decisions. So cloud-based technologies, of course, the claim is that is lower total cost of ownership. But it does create specific integration challenges, right? The biggest one, and I know, is not SQL-based. Who would have thought? But, web services creates that extra challenge. You look at business objects, you look at Cognos, you look at Tableau, you look at SAS, very good SQL writers, not so good with web services, right? So having that abstraction layer that actually converts, and this is what Composite Connector does for us for Salesforce, it converts that web service view into an SQL view. Now everybody's happy, right? Once again, we're back to SQL. We can deal with contacts and customers. They are web services in the cloud, but they're SQL objects within Putnam. So IT performing at the speed of business. If your business is not evolving, so I know I hear all the time, and we're talking about this at lunch, that business requirements change too frequently. And if the business would only make up their mind, we could deliver projects sooner. Well, I would argue that the business really is entitled to change their mind because they need to keep up with changing market conditions. We actually want them to change their mind. We want them to come up with new products. So by the time, if they're not changing their requirement, then something is wrong because something is stagnated. So you actually want the business to be able to go, be able to create new products, look at new channels, how best to sell their products, new alliances, new strategies. And we as IT need to be able to support that in an agile fashion. So we could definitely move data, and cloud computing definitely is a use case where you might think, well, one way to do that is to actually move that data into your environment. Of course, but if you move the data, and if it must be reconciled. I don't know about you guys, but for financial data, if you move it, you must recon it, because you cannot have your main system of record be out of sync with your reporting system. The SEC and the others and our own internal accountants would frown upon that. So if you move it, you must recon it. And if the source systems change, of course, right? If there's schema changes or upgrades or enhancements or whatever, the DW and the ETL, they must keep up. So a DW is never done, right? This is why the data warehouse is never done. It's obsolete by the time you put it in. So data federation helps because if you're not moving the data, first of all, there's technically no recon, right? No reconciliations, and guarantees consistent results. So we've talked about this loose coupling. I know David talked about it earlier, about loose coupling. That's, Putnam has been a composite customer since 2006 or thereabouts, right? I was just checking with Bob. I hoped he would know because I didn't. But 2006 or thereabouts. And we got into it because at that time, our infrastructure was going through some major upheaval. And we thought this would be a nice way to abstract away those source systems changing without affecting the consumers. And so that loose coupling is why we got into it, right? So now, once we had it, and we had this single source, and everything was flowing into composite, it made logical sense that since you have all the data in one place and it's certified, that you use it for your analysis or your reporting or your BI. So now you've got two purposes solved through that. And then now, of course, over the past year or so, with this marketing automation and Salesforce.com out in the cloud, we've added to that by using composite effectively to bring that cloud data in without physically moving it. Okay. Data latency, I know this is where Ted's going to frown a bit, but that's okay. Hiss, boo, hiss, yeah, right. But some data is still good enough daily. I mean, I know we talk about real-time, and the customer interactions that I talked about is a really good example for this use case that you do need that real-time access because customers do not wait for your batch cycles, once again. They are going to pick up the phone and call on their convenience, not yours. But some of the data is still really daily. In our business, the stock prices get published, the final stock prices get published once a day. Our books, our accountants certify the books once a day. The expenses get booked once a day. So is it really that valuable for us to have real-time data to trades and assets? Probably not. On the other side, once again, where it does make sense, and this is the sad part, this is what we moved out to the cloud, is you really need access to the real-time interactions with the customers. You need to know if they opened your email. So if your phone's ringing and Bob's on the call, you want to know that email you sent him last week. with an offer in it to say buy absolute return and win a trip to Hawaii. We're not allowed to do that, by the way, but did he act upon that? Did he click on that email? Did he open it? It would be very important for that person answering the phone call to know that. And a week is a long time. I think most of our batch cycles don't run weekly. But say that was an hour. Somebody got an email and they want to act upon it right then. That's typically a better use case. We don't wait 3 or 4 days before acting upon something that seems like something that you would be interested in. So that's where the real-time connectivity comes in. And the real purpose of this is not so much that how much incremental value this will add, but the underlying theme, and I'm going to go back to what Ted was saying earlier, there's really no reason for us to build those artificial barriers, right? We created the batch cycles for a good reason in the past, but where it's not necessary and we don't have to do it, we want to go real time. We want to get IT out of the way. We no longer have these artificial nightly snapshots that we tell the marketing, that's great, we can tell you how your campaign did tomorrow. They want to know right now. They want to make adjustments now. They want to know if there should be more people manning the phones. They want to know if a wholesaler should go visit somebody now, not tomorrow. Not 2 days from now, definitely not a week from now. So one of the things, of course, I've talked about before, and this is what we used Composite for as well, is a term golden copy. I know it's been used, it's golden something or the other places. We call it the golden copy. And with the numerous data sources that we have, one of the things that we absolutely had to do was make sure that it was the certified business copy. So Composite for us plays that important role of being the certified business data layer. So there's a big distinction here. It's not the system of record. The system of record still is the transactional system. It is a system of certified business use. So if you wanted to look at commissionable sales or assets under management, you would actually tie out to Composite, right? So that is actually what's helped us tremendously. This work was done maybe 18 months ago or so as a precursor to the marketing automation. Without this, we would not know who to target because we would not have a unique picture of that customer. So in order to even get to the marketing automation, we first needed to have a consistent view of the customer. What assets they have with us, what trades are they placing with us, what are their true demographics, how many times did we email them, how many times did they come to our website, how often do they actually open the emails, do we send them direct mail, et cetera, et cetera. So the Data Federation actually is a precursor to the marketing automation project for us. So cloud computing, I know we've talked about this before. So for us, Salesforce.com, like I mentioned, is the CRM. We used to have Siebel on-premise. And with Salesforce, it moved out to the cloud. And that is a major execution channel. So if you think about how campaigns work, or marketing automation, you have your different channels of execution. So if you wanted to send an email to everybody in this room, you would obviously do a bulk email. You would track the responses. You would see if people opened it. You would see if somebody clicked on it or not. And then, as a follow-up action, you might take the people who actually showed an interest in it and pass it off to your call center to make phone calls. Well, for us, that call center is directly linked to CRM, Salesforce.com. It's out in the cloud. So now you need bi-directional interfaces with Salesforce, so this isn't going to work. It's not possible to have campaigns running in real time, emails being delivered in real time, people opening and clicking on emails in real time, but then everything else be batch, right? So having real-time access to enterprise data in the cloud was not a luxury. It was a necessity. In order for campaigns to work, that had to be near real time because, once again, the use case still stays. Somebody opens an email and calls you. You want to know before you speak to that person. So move-it approaches are okay. So we could have taken the approach of taking Salesforce.com data. In fact, as you see in a later slide, because of legacy issues, we do move some data. But in this case, if you move it, then you still have to pick a time interval that you want to move it. And whatever you pick, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half hour, it still introduces that latency. And once again, the underlying theme here is we did not want to introduce fake IT limitations when we had an option to go close to real time. So getting IT out of the way. So all of this is really to support this funnel. And what are we talking about here? What we're really talking about is widening the funnel. All of the 360-degree view of the customer, the interactions, is really moving customers down this funnel. We'd all like to think that prospects go from the top of the funnel to the bottom in one step. Not true. There's many different it'd be great if they did, but many different variations. So by sending emails out or by campaigning or sending directed messages, you're raising awareness. And if somebody's acting upon that, they might be considered a prospect. If that prospect acts or talks to you or talks to a wholesaler or an internal rep, they might become a hot lead. So each of these steps is moving you further and further down the sales funnel. And what we're talking about here really let's take a theoretical example. Say that out of every 100 advisors, you convert 33 to be prospects, 33%. That's it, a third. And then a third of those are really the ones that end up buying your product. So, 11% of the initial population. If we were able to move just qualified leads from just 3 more out of 100, right? Based on the intelligence we gather, because if somebody's showing an interest by opening your emails or by the intelligence you gather or their web activity or by their trading habits or their assets under management or any other criteria that you can link to the 360-degree view, if you can only identify 3 more qualified leads per 100, and you move that number to 36%, right? Simple math, 1 billionth of a second, as Ted would put it. And then you still convert a third of those, right? You're still just converting. Your conversion rate hasn't gone up. It's not that we are saying, well, magically we can sell more. No, our conversion rate still stays a third, but you've raised your sale by 1%. Out of every 100, you're selling to 1 more percent, which is huge if you're talking about the numbers that we're just talking about moving the needle a little bit, just a tad. But that's what we're using it for. And then no presentation would be complete without a real diagram. So this is really how it works. We've got CRM out in the cloud. We've got campaign marketing automation that sits in the middle. This is the decision engine that's using all this data that exists about the customer in a data warehouse, in a campaign history, through the web analytics, bulk email activity, and it's making decisions about whom to campaign to, what to message them with, and then tracking the responses and taking follow-up actions, right? And then on the left side, our shareholder data is out in the cloud as well. It's actually an outsource, so a precursor to cloud model, but nevertheless, not on our premises. So that data gets moved to the data warehouse. We do have ETL. That is batched. But the rest of this is near real time. And I believe, in summary, you've got a 360-degree view of the customer, connecting the dots. Real-time access when necessary. So for us, it was the real-time interactions with customers that was important. And then having the single version of the truth, or the golden copy. And then the disclaimer that compliance had me put over there because they didn't want to be tied with any of this, which is the opinions here are mine and mine alone.